back to me talking about my version of the Marauders in podcast form with Emma again. Yeah. As we were both saying, this is a completely different day. We are not recording these back to back. We are not block recording anything right now. But yeah, so let's go back to these questions.
We should have just both like gotten like a different shirt on, but
yeah,
you can, like,
I know.
tell we're wearing this underneath.
Yeah, we definitely should have just like put on like a jacket or something. Somebody asked opinions on asparagus. I don't know. I think it's solid.
I like asparagus.
I'm okay with it. Dog name ideas, please. Shakira. Name your dog Shakira. Do it.
Then you go, Shakira.
And then the dog comes. I've already mentioned this on the podcast, haven't I? Yeah, okay. I still regret that I didn't name my dog Shakira. So name your dog Shakira. So Soffers _ SOFSRS _ name your dog Shakira. Do it. I don't care if it's a boy. I don't care if it's a girl. It's Shakira now. Does Emma's dad still listen to the podcast?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was funny when I was visiting my family and when I was away, my uncle and my dad would just be talking about it, and then I would like walk into the room and
That's so awkward. As I said, one of these times your uncle's gonna come out here and visit, and he's gonna like know me, and like I don't know him.
Like, I'll like mention you, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I know." Like he knows so much more about you than like my mom does.
I love that for him. I will say, # get Katie on the pod.
We could do like a parent episode.
I'm nervous. Yeah, I was gonna say I'm nervous. I don't want to do it because my mom would just have a lot of opinions. But I feel like your dad might also have a lot of opinions and might also want to like correct me on random stuff. I don't know, but I feel like if there is a podcast episode with my mom on it, it also has to include Emma's dad. And it just has to be the four of us. And yeah, but
no,
I don't
just them,
just
not
them.
us.
Okay, and I like
they just read through your thing and
or I just don't give them a thing. Like they just make an episode and then I just have to roll with it after that. I don't know. Somebody asked me if I would ever consider writing my own stories unrelated to the Marauders because they really like how I do my characters and world building and stuff. And I will say, this is not the only world I got going. This is the only one I talk about. I have always constantly, since like the age of like 7, had like alternate universes in my head or like these massive storylines or something. I learned that this was not common. I thought that everybody did this.
I mean, I do, but there's not like a solid like I would write about this plot.
Yeah.
It's just like I'm bored.
Yeah, I do that too, but then sometimes they just get really, really, really elaborate. So I do have a couple others, but I don't think I'm ever gonna, because I will say the energy it has taken to get this out there has been a lot. And I don't think I would do that for any of my other stuff just for funsies. Somebody asked how we feel about Idaho. I don't like Idaho. Oh man.
I've only been to a tiny part of Idaho.
Yeah. I don't even know if I've actually been to Idaho, but I don't like Idaho. And yep, that's it. Somebody asked favorite 70s song / artist. I am a Billy Joel fan through and through.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Favorite artist for sure. And then
Billy Joel.
Summer Highland Falls is my favorite song. What about you?
Oh, I like all of them.
I know.
Oh my gosh. Let's see.
I have an album right over there. I got a vinyl of a Billy Joel record, and I think it's gonna become decor in my college room.
I really like The Entertainer. That one's just, it's a fun one.
It is a good one. That one
good.
was good to see live because, it was kind of ironic because he's like, yeah. he was singing about how he's never going to be successful. And he's like, now I'm playing Madison Square Garden completely sold out, you know? So, how would you cast the Marauders in High School Musical?
I think you gotta put James as Troy.
Well, yeah, obviously, yeah. He is Troy. But, gosh, do I remember anybody's names? And then Lily's Gabriella, obviously. I mean, it has to be. I mean, I feel like they all just fall naturally. But is it shocking to say Sirius is Sharpay?
I was just gonna say, like, Chad.
I feel like Remus has to be Chad. Which would... No, actually, that's so weird. He would be... Who's the guy who makes creme brulee? That would be Remus.
Creme brulee.
Who's the girl that's like, I want to pop and lock? Whoever that is, there's gotta be like
my
Marlene.
aunt's like friends with her.
What?
Apparently.
Oh my gosh, okay, my voice teacher is so funny because like she never mentioned that she knew all these famous people, and then like the other week, okay, I'm obsessed with Jeremy Jordan. Played Jack Kelly in Newsies on Broadway and became the love of my life that day, and it's never changed. And she's like, oh yeah, I like met him, and like
Boston had a nightmare about him once because you talked about him so much.
I know. Yeah, I talked about Jeremy Jordan a lot. And he's still, I know I've stopped talking about him, but he's still like the love of my life. I want you to know that. Like, he's never gonna go away. I love Jeremy Jordan. No, but I recently found out that
podcast.
Jeremy Jordan, if you're listening. I'm a big fan. No, but my voice teacher apparently, like, any other Broadway people, if you know Laura Unis, who's like done a bunch of stuff with Jeremy Jordan, yeah, she was like, oh yeah, like went to high school with her and stuff. I was like, girl, what the heck? And so like, yeah, just random people, but your aunt knows the pop lock girl, so it's all good.
Who's Peter?
Oh, who's Peter? Peter is Troy's dad.
No.
Yeah. Or like Professor Sterling is Troy's dad. Just like the vibes, you know? Like not Effie or Monty. No, it's Professor Sterling. I don't know. Peter is no, he can't. He doesn't fit anywhere.
Because they don't have just normal people.
No, they don't. They're all wacky and wild. He's just collectively everybody
he
in
is.
Stick to the stuff you know.
That's Sharpay.
No, that's everybody.
Yeah, but she's like the...
Oh my gosh.
She's...
I could just really picture Sirius belting out every single part that Sharpay sings ever. But anyway, I feel like we need to move on we need to skedaddle on into the episode. So, guys, we're like actually at the Quidditch World Cup now. We're skedaddling right on into the episode, and we're at the Quidditch World Cup. So unfortunately, I think about who is playing, where it's located. Is it literally any different from
it was
when Harry? Is it any different from when Harry went to it? No, it's the exact same because that's how my brain works, and I was like, I don't know. So it didn't come up with teams. It's just how it is. But yeah, so they're like in that giant.
Did the cannons make it?
Yeah, we'll say the cannons did it. And so everybody from James's entire town is just there.
Yeah. They all have season tickets.
Oh yeah, for sure.
The Potters buy them for everyone.
Mm-hmm, yeah. But yeah, so you know how like they said like, cause they all have to like camp out at these random sites or whatever. So they're doing that again. But in the books, it was like the people with the cheaper tickets had to get there super early and like stay there the longest and stuff like that. And then the people who had more expensive tickets just basically showed up for the game and could leave. But like in order to maintain the secrecy of the event, like they had to stagger arrivals and stuff like that. So technically the Potters could like get there morning of and like be fine and then just leave right after, but they're like, we got to give you guys the experience, because they definitely like as kids went to like and were there forever and stuff like that. So they get there like a couple days early, and then and are there a couple days after as well. But yeah, so when they get there, Marlene and her family are already there, and like they took Dorcas along, and it's like a good time. And like as soon as they get there, they're all just like hanging out. And of course, Sirius is like immediately like, okay, so like didn't want to ask in writing, but what about the order? And Marlene and Dorcas are like, okay, this is not the time or the place, and why later. Yeah. So anyways, that's kind of the end of that. That's the thing. I meant to come back to that, and then I just never did, and I was like, whoops. But anyway, so Sirius's hair is like not really short anymore, but it's definitely not as long as it used to be. And so it's like causing like some comments, but he just kind of brushes it off as like, okay, listen, I thought it would look good. Okay, I was wrong. Sometimes we can be wrong. It's allowed. It's like, you're telling me you've never made a mistake? Like,
they're like, no, never.
But yeah, so anyway, they end up being the center of a lot of conversations held by like other students from Hogwarts who happen to be there, because James and Sirius are friends now. And if you'll remember, they kind of faked this whole, like, fight and everything. And now they're just, like, chilling. And they're like, oh, yeah, we did do that. So, like, there's all these people. And they're like, what drama happened? And they just, like, start, like, saying, like, random rumors and stuff.
Everyone says something different.
Yeah. But it's just a whole thing. So, yeah, so everybody's talking about them already. And so they get their tent set up, and then Lily and James, like, start to, like, just go off and explore and, like, see people, and other people just kind of go their separate ways, too. And Effie and Monty are, like, already becoming besties with, like, the people next door, who I have decided are Russian. And they're just, I think Effie, like, speaks Russian randomly. I feel like that fits her character. I feel like there is no explanation needed. And so they're, like, already, like, let's have tea. They're, like, already besties and everything. So yeah, but Lily and James are wandering around. They see random people from like school and from Chudley and like family friends of the Potters, who are all just like, James, you're getting so tall. Oh my gosh. And it's like a whole thing. And eventually they run into Harper Morgenstern, who is a Hufflepuff prefect in their year. And she's like, oh my gosh, Lily, how are you? She runs up, she hugs her. And like they're not like close, but like they did a bunch of prefect rounds together the previous year, so she's like, yeah, whatever. And she's like, so have you heard anything about Head Boy and Girl? I've been asking around, like still nobody's heard anything. And Lily's like, but she looks at James and he's not ready. He's like, please no. And there's like, they've only been there like an hour and there's already like rumors about him starting. And so he's like, and so she's like, you know what? No, I haven't heard anything either. It's so crazy. And Harper's like, oh my gosh, they have to get on with like the picking. Like, I mean, really, like term starts in like less than 2 weeks. What is taking them so long? And Lily's like, I don't know, that's crazy. And she's like, honestly, we all just thought it was like a slam dunk for you and Bradley. And Lily's like, why would you talk about him? She's like, I literally hate that man. And she's like, well, she's like, well, you know, I expected that's why it was taking it so long, because like you said you didn't want to be with him, but like everything, and like that maybe that was causing drama. And Lily's like, no, that was not it. And she's like, oh well, that's kind of what everybody thinks. But anyway, they continue the conversation a little bit until a familiar face catches Lily's eyes behind Harper, and it's Julie. And she sees Lily too, and for a second, like neither of them like know what to do. Like they had planned on talking to each other, but like they're like, hey, like what? Hey, how y'all doing? That TikTok sound. So yeah, so Lily breaks off the conversation with Harper and like starts walking towards Julie, and James is like right by her side. He's like, what do I do? Like, how do I help? And she's like, just stay nearby. And he's like, okay, do you protect? How do I do this? James. And she's like, literally just like, you're fine. she's like, just stay nearby. And so he does, and he like wants to like, you know, reach down and give her hand like a squeeze of encouragement, but then he's like, that's weird, that's too much. Okay, so he's like, good luck. And then like, and then just holds back. Okay, so Julie. So when Lily approached Julie, the first thing Julie said was like, listen, like, if this is a bad time, like, we don't have to. And Lily's like, no, it's fine. Like, me and Harper, we're done talking anyway. I want to hear what you have to say. And she's not like angry, or Lily's not like immediately thrilled or anything. But just because she's not, like, angry, Julie's like, oh my gosh, Lily was so nice. What the heck? She's like, she always forgave people, and that's, like, why she stayed friends with Snape for so long. And Julie kind of figured that, like, her time with, like, the boys had, like, kind of hardened that a little bit.
The boys.
Or, like, you know, losing her friends had made her less forgiving. But here she was, just being like, yeah, I want to give you a chance. And Julie's, like, feels exponentially worse about everything because of that. Because she's just like, oh my gosh, I treated her so bad. And she's like, I am so sorry. And Lily's like, why don't we go somewhere else, somewhere more private? Because Lily's like, this does not feel like a crowded path type of conversation. And she's like, my tents have my family in it, and they're all completely full. And she's like, okay, then let's go to the Potters then. And Julie's like, she's so nice. Anyway, so they do. And although Julie has, like, practiced, like, a million times what she was going to say to Lily, and, like, how she would explain, like, the horrible friendship dynamic that was, like, created with, you know, all of those girls, and how it really didn't have to do with Lily specifically, or even Muggleborn specifically, and it was just, like, something that kind of made them all feel better about themselves, and now she just, like, feels like none of her explanations will, like, do anything. She's like, this is just bad. So she's basically like, I knew it was wrong, I did, but somehow, like, it didn't feel that way. It didn't feel like we were being horrible, so I tried to convince myself that, like, we weren't being horrible. She's like, I tried to convince myself it's, like, just, like, stupid Hogwarts drama that, like, didn't really have to do with you being Muggleborn, and that everybody else was just being way too sensitive. But that's not true. It was really horrible, and, like, I know that. And she's like, and honestly, with all the stuff that's been happening in the Ministry, and, like, everything in the news, and, like, she's like, everything in, you know, the Daily Prophet when they feel like reporting, she's like, I think the others know it too. I've had conversations with Margaret and Amber, and it's just all horrible, Lily. And she's like, and the whole point of why I wanted to talk to you wasn't to win you back. I get it if you don't want to be friends with me, you don't have to be. But I need you to know that I'm not one of those people that, like, you've been reading about. Like, you're as good of a witch as me. You're better, actually. You belong here in this world, and I'm so sorry if I made you feel otherwise. And so Lily kind of expects her to stop at that point, but then she just keeps on going. She's like, I don't know why some people from Muggle families just suddenly get magic, and frankly, that's always confused me, because, like, it obviously runs in families, but, like, then you just appear. And she's like, and so when other people started talking about those theories, I just, like, bought into it, and it was easier than it should have been, and I don't know why I ever let them change my idea of you, and now it just is stupid and horrible, but I don't know. I wanted an answer to everything, but obviously there's not an answer to everything. And she's like, the point was I was stupid. I don't believe any of it anymore. I haven't for a long time, since before Mary left, and, you know, I'm sorry it took me so long to leave too, but I just want you to know, like, I'm on your side. And Lily's like, I get it. And she's like, you do? And Lily's like, no. Not really. She's like, but I can understand you a bit better now. And Julie, like, nods, and she's like, I'm just so sorry. And she's like, I know you are. And, like, it's true. Like, Lily knew Julie, and, like, she was being completely genuine. And, like, a part of her, like, Lily always does, just wants to be like, I forgive you, and, like, it's over, and it's done, and it's, like, all good. And she can just completely forget everything. But, like, it's different. Like, this wasn't, like, how it was with Mary, because Mary stayed longer because, like, she was a Muggleborn too and didn't really want to become a target, like, that dynamic. But, like, Julie wasn't gonna, you know, become a target if she stood up for her, and so she's like, that's kind of different. And so she's like, I missed you, Julie, I really did. And Julie's like, I missed you too. And she's like, but I can't, like, just move on, like, right now. And Julie's like, yeah. And she's like, I think I just, like, need time. And Julie's like, of course, you know, I needed time too, and I took more than my fair share of it. But Lily's like, I can't deal with, like, hostility between us though. Like, I can't do it. And Julie's like, yeah. And Lily's like, so no secrets, no, like, not looking at each other, just, like, neutrality. Like, can we just be totally neutral? And Julie's like, yeah, absolutely. And she's like, and Lily, like, Amber and Margaret really do feel the same as me. Like, they do. And, like, we're going to talk to Eden, too. And she's, like, the last one. She's like, the point is, you and Mary are more than welcome to stay in our dorms this year. And, like, if you want. If you don't want to, that's fine. But, like, you don't have to stay away anymore. And Lily nodded, and that was pretty much the end of that conversation. So, kind of yay.
Wow.
Kind of we're getting there. Julie's not gone. I feel like a lot of people thought I forgot about her. I did not forget about her. She's been here, just her arc had not come yet. But yeah, so let's get into some other stuff. So the next few days passed by like super fast. Like Marlene and Dorcas are just like always in the Potter's like gigantic tent. And I feel like I kind of have to explain this tent. I feel like it's like a full thing. Like, you know, it's like if we thought the Weasleys' tents were intense, haha, intense, no, okay. If we thought their tents were, like, extravagant, like, they were poor. These tents are, like, just houses, you know? Like, you just walk in, it just looks like a normal tent, but you walk in, it's just a house. But anyway, but the big room, it's, like, meant still, like, for camping, though. So they have, like, a more central room, and then Effie and Monty have their own room, and then there's just a giant room full of like bunk beds, and like that's just where everybody is. It's like camp, and it's just, you know, everybody's always hanging out in there, and so there's just like always random Hogwarts people there. Marlene and Dorcas are always there, and stuff. I don't think Mary's like even like here, but if she were, she would be there too. They have these, you know, late night talks and stuff. They ask Marlene and Dorcas about like, hey, so like the order, like what's been going on with this? And Dorcas is like, okay, so I joined the order, and like, yeah, been pretty awesome. And Marlene is like, so I did not, and I am not really allowed to. And they were like, bro, what the heck? And she's like, yeah, so turns out my parents, not as chill as I thought they were. She kind of has more pureblood parents too. And she's like, and they just want me to stay out of everything. And like, honestly, they kind of lean more towards Voldemort. And so I can't do anything. And I feel like it's going to cause so many issues if I do join. So I'm just going to have to sit back and really not do anything, at least for a while. And they're like, dang, that's crazy, because Marlene was like so set on joining the order.
Wow.
And now she's not. So that's a thing, but we'll come back to that at a later date. Anyway, more fun stuff though. So the next day, they're all are just like playing card games. I did post this on my story. I feel like Lily's dad on his last visit, like home to America, got the card game Uno. And then just was like taught Lily how to play it, and like they loved it, and so then Lily brought it here, and like everybody in the entire like just like many a deck was like copied via magic, and so then like everybody suddenly had Uno here. And so am I saying Lily Evans single-handedly brought Uno to the UK? Yes, yeah. I am. So yeah, but they just like, I can just imagine so many intense Uno games at this stage, just with everybody, just it would just be such a good time. Yeah, I just needed that in my life. But a lot of Lily's time was also spent listening to James being so excited about this game, and explaining everything about Quidditch to her about 5 times, which was good because every time somebody explains to her how Quidditch is played, she immediately forgets. And so like she always like knows like right before games, but then she's always like, wait, I don't remember what these things are. And so she's just a constant explanation. She's like, yes, thank you. And then James just like rambles on.
James is ready to go.
Yeah, he's always ready to explain it again. But finally, the day of the game was here. Everyone headed up towards the arena, which was just like insane to be in. This is another thing that I have mentioned in TikToks, but have not yet mentioned. Lily, or I don't think so, which is that Lily is absolutely terrified of heights. And it was already like a thing. It was her own personal struggle to make it up to the Quidditch stands like at school. and those are nothing compared to this. And so, like, they have to go up, like, through, like, the scaffolding and, like, you know, stadium seating and stuff like that. And she's just, like, gripping the walls and, like, making it up. But she's not stopping. But, yeah, so she's terrified of heights secretly. And so it ends up being, like, James and Remus have to be, like, on either side of her as they're walking up the stairs, and she's, like, linked arms with both of them, and is, like, so angry, and they're going up, like, one step at a time, and everybody has to go around them, because she's so embarrassed, but she's like, I'm making it to these freaking seats, and it's happening.
Oh, wow.
But it's good. They're having a good time. Everybody's, like, Sirius and Peter are just, like, laughing at her, because why did she agree to come to this? But she's like, I'm doing it. I'm gonna be here, and I'm gonna be a good, fun member of the group. But yeah.
Oh, Lily.
So yeah, it's all fun. It's all good. Everyone's having a good time. And then, I'm so sorry. And then Sirius catches sight of them, his parents, with Regulus. He had, like, gotten up. They had finally gotten to the seats, which had taken a very long time. And he's, like, getting up to get food or something, and he, like, sees them and just, like, stops dead. And, like, thank goodness Remus noticed. But when he, like, he gets up and, like, gets out of his seat and pushes past everybody, Sirius is, like, already spiraling. He's just, like, full panic mode. And so Remus, like, pulls him into, like, the most secluded area he could find, which is, like, not ideal because they're literally, like, so high up in a stadium in, like, the scaffolding with, like, a roaring crowd and everybody around them. It's not a good time. And so Sirius barely manages to, like, explain what's happening. But, like, the first thing Remus is like, did they see you too? And he's like, Regulus did, but I don't. And, but, Remus is like, and the others? And he's like, no, I don't think so. But he's like, Remus, what if the rest of them are here? Like, my cousins, my aunts and uncles, like, if they like Quidditch too, what the heck? Like, they could be here. And he's like, you're safe here. We're with the Potters. We're surrounded by tons of people. What are they going to do? And Sirius is like, I want to go back. I want to go back to the tent. I don't want to be here anymore. And Remus is just so sad. And he's like, his heart is like, oh, come on, dude. But then there's something else. Anger. Anger that anybody could, like, do this to Sirius ever. And so he's like, you know, we can go if you want to. We can't. But Sirius, I think you should stay. And that kind of pulls Sirius out of it for a second because, like, this whole summer, Remus had just basically let Sirius, like, set all the rules, do whatever he needed to do. And he's like, why? And Remus is like, because screw them, that's why. You've been looking forward to this for, like, literal years. You've done so much without them. You don't need them. You've moved on from your life and, like, everything they wanted you to have. And, like, the very thing they'd want you to do is, like, be sad and miserable in the tent, missing all the fun. And I think that's BS. And he's like, listen, if you want to leave, let's leave. But it's your call. And, like, because the whole point of you leaving them, like, in general, was to not let them control you anymore, to not let them hurt you. And Sirius is like, you're right. And so he, like, pulls himself together, and he's like, and Remus is like, what do you want to do? And he's like, I want to stay. He's like, then we're gonna freaking stay. He's like, we're gonna stay, and you're gonna have the time of your life, and if they see you, like, all the better, you know? You're perfectly safe here, so let's have fun. And so Sirius walks back into the stadium, like, head held high, with Remus right behind him, and he just totally lets himself get lost in the game. He doesn't even notice Remus definitely whispering something to Mr. Potter, being like, dude, like, they're here. But he just has the time of his life. The game lasted hours, and is, like, this total riveting experience. It's perfect. And Sirius, like, almost forgot the whole experience of, like, seeing his parents, almost. But whenever he remembered, all he had to do was just squeeze Remus's hand, and, like, he's there, and he's like, yes, I'm here to have a good time, and it's all good. So yeah. So, I hate to tell you this, but a lot of the Quidditch World Cup isn't actually the Quidditch World Cup, it's all the other stuff that happens. Oh. And so, we really don't get to see that. You get to think of that your own. That's your own version, you know? But they all just had a fantastic time. Like, even Lily, even though it took her, like, a solid long time in order for her to calm down from, like, being up so high. And she's completely embarrassed by the entire experience, but still, she had a great time. The game was fantastic. Everyone's just, like, going through everything, and, like, they all have those binoculars, like, from the books and stuff, and they're, like, rewatching everything, like, a million times, and Effie is, like, definitely, like, they're walking back to their tent, and Effie's, like, definitely insisting that she knew exactly what was going on, although she barely kept up with the entire thing, and was just happy to be there. But yeah, so they're all just talking and stuff, but as they're walking back, James quickly noticed, as they return to the tent, that his dad isn't there. And he's like, Effie, where's Dad? And she's like, oh, don't worry about it. And, like, when the others, like, leave into, like, the giant room or whatever, where they're all, like, sleeping, he, like, asks her again, and she's like, okay, Sirius's biological family is here. Sirius had seen them earlier, but they didn't notice him. That is until we were walking back. Monty hung back to make sure nothing happened. And James is like, great, that's so lovely. Love that for us.
Fantastic.
He's like, they're not going to do anything here, right? And she's like, I don't pretend to know what that family would do and what they wouldn't do. And she's like, okay, but, like, I want everybody to be happy. And she's like, it's just for me and your dad to worry about. Like, everything is going to be fine. And James is like, yeah. And she's like, but James, like, keep an eye on Sirius, please, for the next couple of days. As long as we're here, like, please don't let him out of your sight. And he's like, yeah. So that night lasted well into the morning in the Potter tent. Like, it was, like, party time. Most of, like, the kids, like, stayed up to, like, watch the sunrise. And, like, they eventually, like, decided to get up like, a couple hours of sleep, though. And most of them, like, started to get up for, like, the morning at, like, 12:30, and by most of them, I mean, like, 3 people. And the rest of them were just sleeping. But yeah, so the first shift of people that were, like, leaving for the day and leaving the campsite, was at 2. And so when James, Sirius, and Marlene, who, Marlene, even though it wasn't her tent, she had definitely fallen asleep at the Potter's tent, like, just on the ground, and they were like, well, we can't move her. You know, they kind of get up first, and there's, like, all these people, like, trying to get their tents together, and, like, trying to, like, clean up everything from the night before, and so they're just like, you know what, like, let's help them out, and so they're, like, out walking around just helping out people. And there's, like, quite a bit to do. I mean, everywhere there's, like, people needed help taking down their tents, removing charms, levitating large amounts of trash, incinerating large amounts of trash, which, you know, they really enjoy doing. I don't know why fire was on the brain when I was writing these episodes. But yeah, it's a good time. And so at one point, James and Marlene are putting out some fires that have been made to burn the trash with sand, of course. They're yep. And, like, you know, and then, like, a group of people that do not speak, that do not speak English, were just kind of motioned, like, Sirius over, and they're like, we don't know how to put away our tent. And he's like, okay, so he's helping them do that. And, you know, it's a good time. He's trying to speak to these people. They have no idea what's going on. They're laughing. It's a good time. Until he feels a cold hand grip his shoulder. And he could barely move as he, like, hears, like, Wahlberg's voice in his ear. Like, don't you dare make a scene. Do you understand me? And Sirius just panics. He's like, it feels like he's about to scream, like, about to warn people, warn the people that he was helping, but then he, like, feels her wand at his back, and he just can't think clearly or, like, do anything at all. And so Wahlberga, in, like, her fake polite way, is like, oh my gosh, I really have to take him. Like, he just keeps on going somewhere. We gotta clean up our own stuff here. And, like, they don't really understand her words, but they see that, like, she looks just like him, and they're like, oh yeah, and they just let him go. And it is truly a miracle that James caught sight of Wahlberga and Sirius leaving through the crowd. And he just, like, completely stops short, and he's like, Marlene. And she, like, spins around, like, grinning, expecting to see, like, another sand sculpture that they had been making.
It's not a sand sculpture.
Yeah, no. And instead she just sees, like, the worst look she's ever seen on James's face. And he's like, Wahlberga, she has Sirius. And Marlene is like, oh, shoot. And then she looks and, like, sees where James is looking, and she just, like, starts to run towards him, and James grabs her and is like, no, we can't. She will hurt us or him or both for sure. And she's like, I don't care. We can't just leave him. And he's like, we can't go against her. Marlene, okay. And he's like, okay, you watch them. Don't get any closer. Don't let her see you, and I will be right back. James ran as fast as he has ever run before. Those morning runs pay off, man. And he just, like, flies down the path. In between tents, like, through makeshift front yards, around random pets that are probably dragons, and just bursts into his parents' tent, and he's, like, just yelling that, you know, she had Sirius. And his dad, like, drops his coffee cup, and his mom is, like, already out of the tent, and is, like, not even asking where, and his dad is like, wait, where are they? And he's like right by the front, like Marlene's there. He's like, you left Marlene. And he's like, just stay here, James. Stay in the tent. Nobody leaves this tent until everybody's back here safely. Do you understand? And he's like, yeah. And so then Monty leaves. And so James just stands there and is like, and his thoughts are just like flooding him, and he's like, should he have like gone after Sirius himself? Like, had he wasted too much time getting his parents? And he just feels so incredibly guilty because this wouldn't have happened if he hadn't let Sirius out of his sight. And specifically, like, this is exactly what his mom told him to do. And so he like almost breaks down right then and there, and then Remus is like, Prongs, like, why are you so loud? And he's like barely woken up at this point, and James just turns to him, and like his face just says it all. And Remus is like, what happened? And he's like, it's serious as like all that he could manage, and Remus already knows, and he's like, his parents. And James is like, it was Wahlberga, my parents just went after him. And Remus like grabs his wand, he's like, where? And he's like, no, we can't leave here. And he's like, I'm going after him, James. And he's like, no one's leaving, my dad said, because and it's because I didn't listen to them in the first place, which is why this all happened. And he just gets louder and louder as, like, that sentence started going. And then Remus is like, what? And he's like, I was supposed to keep him in my sight, and I didn't for just 1 second. And now all this happened. And he just sits, like, collapses into a chair and puts his head in his hands. He's like, my mom and dad will find him, Remus, but we would only get in the way. And so Remus just sits down, too. And then, like, the other people are starting to, like, get up because obviously they made a lot of noise. And so then Sirius, I'm so sorry, guys. I'm so sorry. Anyway, Sirius would often look back at this moment as like the most terrifying of his life, because he always thought like if he was captured by like bad guys, like adrenaline would just kick in and he'd just like pew and just like be out of there and like totally be cool. But the opposite happened. While they're in public, he knew, like, he needed to, like, scream, like, cause a commotion, like, do something to get people to pay attention to them, to, like, slow the process down at least. But every fiber of his being is, like, trying to, like, nothing is happening. And so he's just, like, walking with her, and just, like, walked with her to, like, where she brought him, which was, like, off of the campsite into, like, a wooded area. And then he's like, oh my gosh, I just missed my chance. Like, I just didn't do anything. What the heck? And so he's bracing for, like, the worst, but, like, it doesn't come yet. You know, it's all just, like, words. She had seen him with Lily the night before, and that was a big dealio. He had been standing next to her, like, at the Quidditch World Cup, and then he, like, helped her down from her seat afterwards, and she's, like, been grabbing onto him and, like, everything, and they were laughing and stuff, and his mom's really livid about that. Like, her son was seen in public, like, interacting with, like, a mudblood or whatever. But the words she's saying are really not getting to him at all. It's like she's speaking to him, like, behind, like, this bubble. And he's, like, kind of coming back to himself in the bubble. He finally realized, like, he's like, I don't have my wand. She definitely took it from me. And then he's looking around, and it's, like, on the ground behind her. And he's, like, vaguely aware of, like, some minor curses hitting him, of like her yelling at him, but all he could focus on is he's like, my wand is over there, and he's like, if I can get it, if I can summon it, something might happen. And he's never done like wandless and wordless magic yet, but he's like, you know, there's a first time for everything. So he's just focusing on that and like barely even knows what's happening. Everything is just outside of this bubble until finally the bubble pops at the voice of Euphemia Potter, who is like, drop your wand. And it is like the most intense voice he has ever heard from her. And so finally he realizes that Wahlberg is like practically standing over him, that he's on the ground, that his face definitely stings like a lot. And that Effie Potter is like right behind Wahlberg, pointing her wand like directly at her head, and Monty's like right behind her. And so then they each like took a side and like came around her, like they're in the middle, and like they came around. Anyway, so they each take a side and they're walking around, both pointing their wands at Wahlberg, and Monty like gets Sirius's wand in the process. And Monty's like, you've been caught. There's no use keeping up this charade that Sirius has been lying to us, because looky here, we're seeing it ourselves. And Effie's like, drop your wand. She's like, it is all over, Wahlberga. But Monty is trying to like hand Sirius his wand to him, like over his shoulder, because now they're behind Sirius and facing her. And so he tries to hand him his wand over the shoulder, and that was a big mistake, because Wahlberg is like, get away from my son, and she sends a curse straight to Monty's hand, which was holding Sirius's wand, and the curse like went right past Sirius's shoulder, and you know, he flinches away, but it hits Monty's hand, and the wand is dropped, but Sirius, like, just without thinking, just lunges to it and finally gets it back in his hand and is immediately pointing it out at Wahlberg. And Wahlberg is like smirking at him, and she's like, Sirius, put that down this instant. And he doesn't move. And she's like, you are my son, not theirs, and you will listen to me. And it's not good, but he still doesn't do anything. And she yells, Sirius! And sure enough, he finally like flinches his wand and like doesn't point it at her anymore. And she's like, good. Now, this whole vacation that you took this summer has gone on entirely too long, and you're coming back with us today. Now. And Effie's like, no, he won't. Sirius, go back to the tent. And Wahlberg is like, I think you're forgetting that that's my son, and you have no legal right to be doing what you've been doing, you know. And Effie's like, Sirius, back to the tent. And Sirius, you know, looks back at Monty, who's like still pointing his wand at Wahlberg while simultaneously clearly being in a lot of pain from his other hand. And he's like, he doesn't feel like he can leave them. Wahlberg spoke to Sirius now, and he's like, this little game you've been playing ends today, Sirius. You will return home now. You will obey. And Sirius just like sees this flash in his mother's eyes that he'd only seen once before, the day he left. But then Effie's like, Sirius, love, back to the tent. Now. Run. And it finally hits him, and he finally just books it out of there. I'm so sorry.
Oh my god.
I'm so sorry. I don't know what to do. Do I need like a little break? Yeah. I also love how the camera just died. That was really great. And by really great, I mean I didn't like it at all. Anyway, let's finish this up. It's okay. It's okay, Emma. Anyway, as he's running, he has no idea what's happening behind him. He just hears like vague screams of his mom, and then he gets back on the path. And he sees others staring at him like something's going on here. But he doesn't care. He just keeps on running until he like runs into two other people who had been calling his name and then like leapt in front of him, like trying to stop him. And he screams and he's like trying to curse them. And then he finally recognized them. It's Marlene and Dorcas, who had been vibing in Marlene's tent and who she went and got anyway. And Dorcas is like, what happened? And Marlene is saying, okay, you've got to calm down. You're literally sending everybody into a panic. There is so much blood on your face right now. And he's like, he didn't even know. And he's like, I've got to get to the Potters. And she's like, okay, we're coming too, idiot. And so then they're all running to the Potters. And when they reach the tent, he just goes straight into Remus's arms. And he has a cut on his face, and the blood is getting everywhere. But it really wasn't that bad of a cut. It just looked really bad. And so Lily like goes straight into the kitchen to find something that's gonna help. And she comes back to him with like a cool rag, starts blotting his face, and the others just like give him space. And Remus completely thought it would be like hours until Sirius was gonna talk about it. But to his surprise, it only took like a couple minutes. And then he's like, "Your dad, James, like she hurt him." And he's angry, and James is like, he's gonna be fine. He's like, they told me to run for it, but I should have stayed. I should have helped them. And he's like, no, you shouldn't have. They're experienced wizards, and we are still in school. You know? But he's like, still, they shouldn't be there alone. And like, he looks like he's gonna get ready to get up and leave. And then they hear a pop of like apparition right outside the tent door. And James, Lily, Marlene, Dorcas, and even Peter, wands are immediately at the front door. But luckily it's just Effie and Monty. And so they come in and they're like, it's all right. It's just us. Wahlberg won't be coming anywhere near Sirius. Not now and not ever again. Yay. Good for them.
You didn't just say yay after that.
I'm so sorry, okay? Listen, this is another thing. I feel like the whole beginning part of this season was like some of the first stuff I thought of and what I ended up building a lot of the world off of, but it's just really sad. And so like I can't change it though. It's in my brain and it's not going away. So yeah, sorry about that. But Effie and Monty were purposely very vague about what happened after Sirius left. But they're like, nothing got violent, no more curses were thrown or anything. But there were definitely threats. And Effie was like, but it's hard to threaten someone when like you know that they've been abusing their kid. And so it's like, it's hard for her to have any leverage on us. And so she's like, so we all agreed to just go our separate ways. And although they insisted like no one would dare come near Sirius, they're all like, okay, but we're all gonna stay in the tent and be accompanied by one of us for the rest of the time while we're here. And privately they asked Sirius if he wanted to leave like right away, like leave early and just go back to the Potters and like that's it. But Sirius didn't want to. Like, even after everything that happened, he's still, like, in the mindset of the day before. He's like, they're not going to ruin my fun. They're not controlling me anymore. Like, so what? They're here. It's whatever. And so they're like, you know what? Fine. So after about, like, an hour and a half of sadness and talking with everybody, Sirius is like, okay, we're doing something fun. And so he invites, like, practically everybody he knows over for, like, more Uno, more cards. And Sirius is just the life of the party, pretending that, like, nothing is wrong and, like, it's all fine and stuff. Now, is this the healthiest way of dealing with things? Absolutely not. But, it's the one that he's doing. And so he's just kind of there, and everybody's like, you know what? Sure. Like, yeah, we're just gonna, it's all good. Because he, like, refused to be sad. He's like, I'm not gonna wallow anymore. I've had too much of this during the summer. Yeah. So the evening's going great. They definitely devolved into a game of truth or dare, where it was all just dares. And it's really good. And Sirius has the best questions and the best dares and like everything, and it's great. Until Regulus Black appeared at the tent's entrance. So the party was only happening in like the back room with like all the bunk beds and stuff. And so they couldn't see like out to the front. And so the only ones that were there were Effie and Monty, who just like looked at him and were like,
what's going on?
Hey, and he just looks right back at them until he's finally like, I need to see Sirius. And Monty finds his words first, and he's like, I'm not sure that is the best idea right now. And Regulus is like, I need to see him. And Regulus isn't really used to hearing the word no. And he wasn't going to start now. He's very stubborn. And so Effie's like, okay, why do you need to see him? And Regulus is like, he was about to say, like, it's none of their business. And then he's like, I need to return something to him. And she's like, okay, what? And Regulus was going to say something else about, like, it's none of your business. And then he's finally like, fine. So he reaches into his rose pockets and he pulls out the silver mirror. And he's like, it belongs to you, right? Your family? And Monty's like, yeah, that's James. But you can just leave it on the counter there. And he's like, no, I need to see Sirius. I need to talk to him as well. And like he says this as if he's like having to admit something horrible. And Effie's like, I just really don't think that's like a great time right now. If you really need to talk to him, why not just like come to our house in a couple of days or like see him at school? And he's like, no. And he's like, I need to see him now. And Monty's like about to say something else. And then Regulus is like, can you please just tell him I'm here and let him make the decision? And they're like, I don't know, man. And they exchange looks, but eventually she agrees to just tell him that Regulus is here. And then just, as he said, let Sirius make the decision. And so, but Sirius, to his surprise, comes right out immediately. And he's like, what do you want? And Regulus is like, can we talk in private? And he's looking at Effie and Monty, and Sirius is like, no. And he's like, please, Regulus says. And again, he does not do that very often. And Sirius is like, fine, but leave your wand on the counter. And Regulus is like, relax, I'm not going to do it. He's like, do it. And so they do. And so they go into Effie and Monty's little room that's like only protected by a curtain. So like they can still kind of hear like what's happening, but they can't really make out what they're saying. And from the sounds of it, it's a lot of Regulus from what they can hear. And after about 5 minutes of talking, like James and Remus have also made their way out of the room, looking to where Sirius like went, making sure he's okay. And then Lily still soon follows with like Peter right behind her. And so it's like everybody who's in there is like totally not people who, are really close with them or anything. And so, they all come out and they're all just like sitting there just waiting. And things in the room are getting pretty heated. They can hear Sirius like yelling something, and then Regulus being like, I'm not like you, I know that you want me to be like you, but I'm just not. You think because I'm the only one in the family who talks to you, it means that I don't think you're absolutely insane, but I do. You need to pull yourself together and think about what's best. And Sirius is like, get out. And Regulus is like, oh, I was planning on it. And so Regulus like opens the curtain very fast, and then he's like, oh my gosh, so many people are here, but just walks right past them, with like standing up straight and being all proud or whatever. And it's not great. And he grabs his wand on the way out, and he doesn't look back. And when the others turn to Sirius, who is just looking down at the silver mirror in his hand with like no readable emotion on his face, and then after a second, Remus like takes a step towards Sirius and is like, Sirius, what was that about? And Sirius just looks up, and there's just anger in his face and sarcasm, and he's like, what, that? He's like, oh, my dear brother decided to pop in and tell me he was going to be a Death Eater. Isn't that grand? And that's the end of the episode.
Why? What? I thought they were just gonna go watch the Quidditch game.
I'm sorry I'm mean, Emma. I'm sorry. We got a fun
I thought it was gonna be fine.
We got head boy and girl Jilly.
When you say it's gonna, the next episode is fun.
I'm sorry, Emma. I'm just sorry.
That was sad.
I know it was sad. I'm sorry. I don't know what to say. I like this stuff, though, because it's when things get really interesting and drama-filled, but I don't like talking about it. I like writing it. I don't like talking about it, and I know that everybody else is going to hate it. So I am sorry about that. I'm sorry.
I don't know if I said anything the last, second half.
Yeah, I don't think you did either.
Like 3
you were
things
just there. Yeah. Whenever we talk about, Sirius and his family, you just... you just don't say anything at all.
What am I supposed to say? Haha.
No, but okay, when I was... But I didn't even notice that until, Dylan was here or something. And, there was a moment like that where you usually would not say anything, and, Dylan said something, and I was like...
I'm not just gonna be tell a joke.
Well, no, not telling a joke, but being dang, I hate that, and you just don't say anything. Yeah, and that's fine. I'm not saying it's not fine, but it was shocking. When was it? I can't even remember who it was, but it was somebody who said something like that, and it just totally took me off guard. So to everybody who's listening at home, I got a couple of requirements, which is do something happy. Drink some water, and have a good time before the next episode, because I'm so sorry to tell you, it will not be happy. It will have...
Will it?
Yes, it will be very good. The ending is sad. It will be very happy until the end. And then there will be another sad episode after that, and it's just kind of not going to be fun. I'm sorry, we're entering an era. We should name the era so that we're ready for it.
Sad era.
That's it. Just sad era. You don't want anything else.
I feel like that sums it up.
Okay, that's fine. So we're entering sad era. This was officially first episode of sad era. Sad era will continue for at least 3 more episodes.
We got to see Marlene.
We did get to see Marlene. And I feel like, since I don't know how long this series is going to go, I don't know if we're going to end it, if doing it in college is going to be feasible, if we're going to be able to do scenes after it. Maybe I can tell you guys something that's gonna maybe lift the mood, maybe add a little bit more interesting stuff, because I don't know if we're ever going to get to it. Should I just say that?
I don't know.
Okay, so the reason that Marlene told them all that she was not a part of the Order, that was not true. But
I thought she was just gonna be a secret.
Yeah, so she's definitely a spy, and basically her whole thing is pretending that, because her parents were able to convince the Death Eaters that they were on their side, and they were like, yeah, you're gonna take our kid to be your fighter or whatever. And so she is their inside man for a very long time. But yeah, so she started that, and until the others were in the Order, and even a little bit afterwards, she had to pretend that she wasn't a part of it at all. And she's just yeah, I have a day job. And it's not true. And they're like, there's definitely something going on here. But yeah, so that's the truth about Marlene, because I don't know if we're ever gonna like get to war stuff. But yeah, anyway, we can finish this out. Thank you so much for watching and listening, even when it's sad. Yeah, take care of yourselves.
The camera left when it was sad.
The camera did leave when it started getting sad. The camera said, "I'm out of here." But honestly, it lasted longer than I was hoping, because we recorded these 2 episodes back to back. So yeah. Sorry about that. I don't know when these episodes are coming out, because my plan was to write and record as much as possible, but not really focus on editing and posting, because I just want to get as much stuff done as we can, because we are leaving for college in not long. Like a couple weeks.
I think like 19 days.
Yeah, that's not, oh gosh. Oh no. You know? So, we'll figure that out. But yeah, thank you so much for watching and listening. Shout out to Medji Wilson for the music, and Metamorph Montes for the cover art, as always. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Bye. I love how I waved when there's nothing to wave at. So I'm so sorry, Emma. I
That
really
was a
am.
lot.
I know.